Hello, on behalf of the entire SmartSuite team, good morning, afternoon, evening, wherever in the world you're joining us from today. We've got a true international crowd. That's going to be a great webinar, but welcome and thank you for spending time with us today. It's going to be another insightful webinar designed to help us learn, level up our SmartSuite knowledge, skills, and imagination. My name is Jeff McAdam. I'm an account manager here at SmartSuite. And today's webinar is all about transforming workflows with SmartSuite automations. We've lined up some fantastic presenters who will showcase real-world automation examples in action. So we're going to demonstrate how teams use automations to save time, reduce manual steps, and connect work across systems. You're going to see everything from simple time savers to complex multi-step workflows. So whether you're just getting started or fine-tuning your workspace, there's something here for you. With that, I'd like to introduce our presenters. From SmartSuite, we have Peter Novosel, Chief Product and Innovation Officer, Artem Kunstia, Product Manager, and we also have two special guests joining us from one of SmartSuite's incredible partners, Discover No Code. Who will be with us today is Rawson Long, co-founder, and I believe also Baden Ballard, COO and lead developer at Discover No Code. So they have a lot to cover in the next 56 minutes, so we'll jump right into it. Just a few quick housekeeping items, and then I'll kick it over to Peter. This webinar is being recorded. It'll be shared with everyone who registered. Participation is the key to harmony, so please drop your questions into chat or Q&A. We'll do our best to cover them in real time, and we'll save some time at the end. And last but not least, use the reactions to show our presenters some love throughout the presentation. So without any further ado, Peter, I turn things over to you, sir.
All right. Let me get my screen shared. And let me know if I'm coming through.
You are.
Excellent. Okay. We're going to cover quite a lot here in the next hour. But I know that we have people with a varying level of knowledge and familiarity with SmartSuite automations. So I'm going to start simple and just take a few minutes here at the front end to describe to you kind of the overall structure and how you get started with automations. So here we have your prototypical project management app with things that you would expect, projects and tasks, templates, which we're going to talk about here as part of one of the automations that we'll take a look at, and some other things like status reports. Now, the purpose of automations, which is located in the solution menu, and it's available to people who are solution managers. The solution manager concept is essentially elevating an individual user to a limited admin role within the context of a single solution. So just to show you what that means, here in solution permissions, you can see down here at the bottom, I have a list of solution managers. These people can be general users. They do not have to be system admins, but if they're in this list, they will have this capability, as well as the ability to modify permissions and all of the application structures. But once you have that permission, you now have this automations option. And when we click in here, you can see a list of any of the automated processes that have been configured. A few things to note here. We give you the ability to summarize the automation with a title. You can also associate a description, and then it gives you kind of a summarization of what's involved in that automation. And we can look through some of these that I've configured to show you. You know, you generally have what is the triggering action when a button is clicked. Then we're going to find some records and do some other things. So it's just a way to help you find things quickly. They're also organized in folders that correspond to the individual tables, again, to try to help guide you when you have a number of these, making it easy to find and manage them. Over here on the side, you can see toggles on and off. So when you're creating an automation, you can leave it in an off state. So it's not running until you have fully configured it and you're ready to get started. To add an automation, just down here at the bottom, click Add Automation, and you get a brand new template with some placeholder content that's just blank. We give you a default name. This can be edited. And one of the other things that people often miss is that you can also add descriptive content. And you can leave notes here. If you have multiple solution managers, this can kind of make it easier to describe what the intent of this automated action is. Before we get into the configuration, a couple of other things that you should be aware of. Automations run in the time zone that is set in the automation. And this is a frequently misunderstood um, feature of automations. This gives you absolute control over time-based elements within that automation. So you know explicitly when you're looking at times, which time zone this automation is going to run in. And you do have the option to modify this just to make it easy for you to see and navigate and really understand when those times, what those times mean. We store all of the times in universal coordinated time, but all of the time values will be translated to whichever time zone you select here. We also have the ability to see some history, and we'll take a look at that here in the context of actually configuring the automations. Automations themselves have two primary components. It's basically an when this happens, then do this series of actions. So the when we call triggers. If we expand the triggers, we have two kind of categories of trigger. The first are SmartSuite triggers. And SmartSuite triggers allow you to react to events in SmartSuite itself. So things like when a record is created or updated, when a form is updated. So again, an update, but very specific to SmartSuite forms. We also we give you the ability to run things at a particular scheduled time. I don't know that we're going to go into this one in detail today, but basically it would give you the ability to run something on a regular basis, daily, weekly, monthly, for things like generating regular reports and that type of activity. One of our newest triggers is when a button is clicked. This allows you to put a button directly within a record and start an automation that uses that record as a starting point and letting you perform actions from there. And then on the more advanced side, we have when a webhook is received. Some of you who are a little more advanced in automation workflows know that many systems can send you an HTTP post with information that then you can use to power your automation. So this would be from an external system sending data into SmartSuite at a URL that's designated when you pick this trigger type to start your automation with that external data. And then down here at the bottom, we have two integration types, Outlook and Gmail for now. This list will expand, but essentially what this allows you to do is pick up emails that meet certain criteria from accounts that you configure to be tied to this automation. So when that email is received and it meets the criteria you specify, it will start your automated process. So let's just pick when record is updated as just kind of an arbitrary one to start with. When you do that, you have conditions that you can specify. So you update records frequently. You probably don't want to run this automation every single time a record is updated. So conditions allow you to specify when and under what circumstances this automation should run. So here in my projects table. Maybe I want to look at our stoplight status. It's kind of your standard green, yellow, red. I want to say when it changes from equals to green to any other value, right? So you can capture changes in your data and use that to initiate some series of actions. We'll walk through this in more detail as we go through some of the scenarios that myself and Artem and our guests are going to cover. But just to show you the second part, once this trigger matches its conditions and it, what we call it, fires the automation, it initiates this series of actions, you have a variety of things that you can do. You can see this is quite a long list. We're not going to cover all of these today, but just to give you a sense for what's available. The first category, well, we'll talk about looping here in a minute. Automation actions relative or that pertain to SmartSuite are kind of first. So you can do something in SmartSuite when this automation fires. And all of the things that you would probably would come directly to your head, creating records, updating records. You even have the option to delete records. There's a merge capability that allows you to, say, recognize a contact with the same email address and consolidate data. There are a variety of options, generating PDFs, and even reaching back out to external systems with an outbound HTTP call. You have a lot of flexibility here. We've done entire webinars on this particular one, the AI Assist action, which is the first of our AI-powered automation actions, giving you the ability to interact with an LLM and use that AI response in your automation workflow. And Artem's going to show you just a little snippet of that later. And then finally here, with these integration types, you have the ability to reach out to certain external systems that we've explicitly integrated with to do things like send a Slack message or send a SMS via Twilio, reach out to people via email or update a Google Sheet. All kinds of things that allow you to kind of expand beyond the confines of SmartSuite and take other external actions. One thing that I want to note here is that you can have multiple actions. Actions do proceed in the order that they're defined. So if I had two update actions, I can actually swap the order, which is also something that, you know, some of our first-time users don't understand intuitively. You can drag and drop these to define the order in which you want to process them. Okay. That's kind of the general lay of the land. We'll take a look at one of these configurations to see how it all comes together and actually make some changes in SmartSuite. But I'll pause just briefly. Jeff, do we have any initial kind of foundational questions before we dive into one of the configurations?
Yes, we do. Thank you for stopping real quick. I didn't want to interrupt you. So
Yeah.
there's three in the Q&A queue. Elena has one. The first one is, can you have task templates stored in a different table than the task themselves?
We actually have that use case specifically in this demo. So I'll show that to you.
Wonderful. Alma has a question. Can you add more than one time zone to the automations?
You cannot. Each automation runs in its own defined time zone. And all that does is tell the automation the times that we're configuring it should be interpreted in that particular time zone, just to make it easy for you to configure and for you to interpret the time values that are output.
Nice. And then Dave has one. In automations, how do you set up an if then has two different branches based on yes and no?
So that that's a great question, very intuitive. We do not yet have a conditional type. What we're planning on doing is extending this advanced logic section with a conditional action that will allow you to have branching conditions to say, if status is in progress, then do these actions. But if status is in review, then do this list of actions. Right now, you would have to do two separate automations, but we're working hard to expand this so that you're in a position where you can kind of consolidate and just have one automation instead of several. What looping allows you to do is take a list of things like a number of records that you retrieve via a find action and loop through them and do something with each one. So oftentimes what people will do is use the filter criteria in your trigger to narrow down to the situation, the types of actions that you want to hone in on, and then use that looping function to make multiple updates simultaneously.
Awesome, love it.
Okay.
And they're coming in. There's a few more between chat and Q&A. Thanks to everyone for putting in your thoughts, your questions. We'll do real two in the Q&A real quick. Elena has another one. I'll do my best to read it here. Can tasks, so the initial question is, can tasks be created recurrently from the project templates?
They can, it depends on the trigger conditions. And maybe I can talk through that it's kind of scenario two that I want to show. So let's
Okay.
dive back into the examples and then we can talk through some of those circumstances. So
Okay.
here, the first thing that I want to show you is just a very simple setup. The idea here is to recognize when my project has been set to a stoplight status of yellow or red. And when that happens, I just want to change its overall status to an overdue value. This is just kind of an arbitrary thing. We could, if you wanted to base this on um, like a due date, for example, it's probably a better example with setting an overdue status. I want to say that is on or before today. So if the due date, and maybe we want to say actually is less than today, you can recognize that condition. And hey, our due date is in the past. And when that happens, I want to set an overdue status. Very simple, but you can use that type of very straightforward automation action to make changes when certain things happen in the records. So if we go back out here to our table data, and let's say I want to change this, all of a sudden this one has become red. What that's telling the system is, hey, this just matched because it became red. And now our overall status is changed to overdue, or we could label this in danger or something, just to kind of elevate the the visibility of that state to all users. And maybe there are a number of conditions that come together. You've got multiple tasks that are overdue or something of the sort, and you want to set an overall state. But just doing that type of simple matching and then updates, very straightforward. To configure this, you pick in the update record, you pick the table that you want to update. And in this case, it's the same table as the trigger condition. So I'm saying here, it's really the only option I have unless I'm finding records to go update. I want to change that record. I want to replace the value in overall status with overdue. Well, how do we do that? we give you the option here, this little blue plus you'll see in many places, to either select an explicit value or select a value from the trigger or one of the actions that has come before the action that you're configuring. So you can use all of that information to fill in these values. You also, it's important to note, in many cases have the option to either replace, append, if it's a type that can be appended to, like a text field or a smart doc or a multi-select. You can just add onto the existing values. Or in some cases, you actually want to clear the value. You want to kind of reset and go back to an empty state. We let you do that explicitly here. Once all of this has come together and it's run, you have activity history that shows you when that automation run started, how long it took, how many actions were taken, whether it was successful or not. And then you can actually drill in and see all of the details of the inputs as well as the outputs. And it's time-stamped. If there are any errors, they will be listed here and you'll have more information and you can kind of see where things came to run into a problem. And at times, you'll have the option up here with a button to rerun the automation as well. So that's about the simplest case where you're just taking one particular condition. I did want to take this opportunity to mention the differences. A lot of people are kind of confused. What is the difference between matches condition and record updated? There are really a couple things. Record updated is just that. When the record is updated and saved, those conditions are evaluated. When a record matches a condition, fires whenever all of the criteria start to be true. And that can be either when the record is created or when the record is updated. So either one of those, it fires the first time that all of those conditions match and become true, which again, it's powerful, but it can be a little confusing. So just keep that in mind as you're building things. And in the interest of time, I just want to show you one more thing, because this was asked specifically about templates. So one of the things that automations are frequently used for is to generate content and generate content from some kind of template data. So to set this up just very briefly, I have my projects. All of the projects, if I go into any one of those, let's go into test, they have a type. This is type product launch. And I have a bunch of tasks that need to be done for a product launch. What I've done is I've created, I of course have my tasks table where they'll be stored, but now I have a task template table where I have certain information about those tasks defined. This is type product launch. It's a task as opposed to a milestone. It might have a sequence number. It may have all kinds of other information. So what you can do is instead of manually creating those every time, I can click this generate button and it will run that associated automation. And what the automation is doing, drill into this. So the condition is the button was clicked, no other conditions, just every time it's clicked. The first thing that I'm doing is I'm finding fields from the task templates table that are of the type of the project that I just clicked the button in. In this case, it's product launch. It's going to find multiple records. That's where we can add a looping action and target that find and say, I want to repeat this for everything in that task template search. When you define a looping action, it lets you have sub actions. And in this case, I'm just going to create tasks in the task table. I'm going to name it the name that is coming from that template record. I'm going to associate the project it came from the trigger, and set the task type from the template. The only other trick to this is when you select this task name, you have a current option or a current item option when you're in a loop. That means properties of the record that you're iterating through. So each time you loop through a task, it has values. I can grab any of those values, map them into the individual new created records. And when that all runs, we have tasks that get created. These were just created for that test launch. You can see them linked back to the project, and they have the values that I set, like type and so forth. You can see a bunch of holes in the data. This can be filled in other ways, and um, Artem has some video out there of using AI to actually figure out the due dates and really do some fancy things with this. But even without a lot of advanced configuration, you can do quite a bit to automate this type of generation. So in the interest of time, I'm going to leave it there. Any quick questions, but I really want to hand off to Artem so that he can show you some of the really cool things where all of this comes together in kind of a multi-stage process.
Yeah, that was great, Peter. Thank you. We do have 4 or 5 questions. My thought is, because of interest of time, we'll try to save those at the end. And if
Yep,
Peter, Artem, and Rawson, if you can stay on, we'll get all these questions. They're great questions, but yeah, I agree. I think we want to get to Artem and Rawson, and we'll hit the questions at the end. So, Artem.
absolutely. And I think some of what Artem is going to show may clarify some of them. So Artem, take it away.
And I can also answer a couple of them just typing in the QA. Some of them are very specific, so I can send answers to those.
Awesome. Thank you.
Excellent.
All right, Artem, over to you, sir.
Right. Yeah, thanks a lot. So I gotta admit, as I was preparing for this webinar, I think I might got a little bit carried away with the use case I'm about to show, but bear with me, I will try to explain everything in a very detailed way. So let me start sharing. The idea I have is this. So imagine we are selling products to customers who are located worldwide in all the countries, and they're using different currencies because of that. While we operate in US dollars and we keep our own pricing in US dollars, right? And then on top of this, the products that we're selling, they tend to change their pricing a lot, maybe daily, right? So in order to keep up with this process, we have to take into account the currency of the customer, the exchange rate that is effective right now, and also the price of the product that we're selling. And the workflow that we're going to build today actually allows us to create order items for an order, and it will automatically pick the right exchange rate, the right currency, and the right price for every product that we add to the order. So I hope it makes sense. Then the tables that we are going to deal with, we have quite a lot, but they're basically like, they all make sense. Yeah. So we have a list of currencies that we work with: dollars, euro, pounds, and Swiss francs. Then we have a table where we are keeping the score of the exchange rates. And that's how the typical exchange rate table would look like, right? So there's a date, the effective date, then we have the base currency, and then the currency to which you are exchanging, right? And then we have those numbers. So we keep the history here. And then in a similar way, we deal with price lists. So we have our products, and then we track that for this leather jacket, the price was this as of this date, and then it changed, and then it changed again, and so on and so on. And we keep it in US dollars. So these are the things we will need to accomplish the entire thing. Now, let's say we will create an order. We will pick a customer from UK just to make sure that the currency is not in dollars. And then as a next step, we will add some products from the catalog. And I have to mention that in SmartSuite, you can link records across multiple solutions if you didn't know. So my customers are not located here. They're placed elsewhere in my CRM. These products are not here as well because they are in the products inventory. And I'm linking stuff across all of these solutions. So I will pick leather jacket. I will pick this jeans. 2 products is enough. And I will click the button to create other items, and the result we expect to get will be something like this. And so it will create other items that will link it to our order, fill in all the prices, and give us the right price in the right currency for the right product. So let's see how we can accomplish this with just one button click. As Peter showed you, in this example, I'm using the trigger when the button is clicked, and it's basically it. There's nothing fancy to it. So when we click a button, the whole thing starts. And as you might imagine, because we are creating order items for an order, we're creating a list of stuff. Yeah? So we have to run this cycle. We have to run the loop. And the looping action works in a way that it needs to receive a list of something that it can loop against, right? So to build this list, we will first do the find action, and we will find the products that we have added to the order. We will go into the products catalog, and we will say, okay, give me those products that I have just connected to my order. The condition is very simple. And the output of this, just keep that in mind. We'll have those 3 products stored here in this action. Then the next step for us will be to find the right exchange rate that is applicable for today. And as in this case, I was trying to search for multiple records. This next step is where I need to find only one record, because for today, there will be only one exchange rate applicable. And the filter condition here gets a little bit more complex because we need 2 things. We're saying here that we're looking for an exchange rate that matches to the billing currency that we pull from the order level. Yeah, and I forgot to mention that when we create an order, we link it to a customer, and knowing the customer, we know the currency that this customer operates in, right? So that's how we can connect these 2 things to each other. So first we say, okay, give me the exchange rate for the currency that is the same as the currency the customer operates in. And as a second condition, as I showed you, we might have for British pound, for example, we might have several of them. So that's why we'll add another condition here saying, okay, we only need the latest one that applies. And without going much into details, that's how we can actually find the latest effective rate for the given currency. And we will store it here. So that's these 2 actions. One brought us the list of products. The other brought us the right exchange rate for the currency that we work with. And that's enough for us to start the looping. And in the looping settings, we'll have the source to loop against. Again, as I mentioned, that will be the list of products we just found. So these 3, well, 2 of them. All right, but before we can create an order item, we need to get the price for every product. That's fine. That's why we are using another find, but as you can see, we're doing it inside the looping. Yeah, so for every product that we have, it will go and try to find the right price from the catalog. The setup here is similar to exchange rate. Again, we're saying we're looking for the product that is the same as the current one we are iterating against. And we will need to find the price that is effective. We're comparing it against the order date right now. Yeah? So this is how we will get out of this price list, we'll get the latest price that applies for today. And we might say that we're ready to go and create an order item, but remember that our prices were stored in US dollars, as I'm showing here in the price list. which will not work in this case because we need them to be converted to British pounds. And this is when we will use a little help of AI. So all we tell it is that, look, you have the price of the product that we derived from this step. And that's how we can do it, by the way. When we hit the plus, we get access to all the previous steps that we took. Find current price is one of them. Yeah, and from here we can pull the price that was found. And then multiply it by the rate. And the rate we found in another previous state, which is here, and we can access it by doing this. Get exchange rate, boom, here's the rate. So we tell it just do the math, calculate the price. And the response we expect to get from AI is a plain number. And I think the only thing I added here was an instruction that the use 2 decimal points. That's the only thing that matters. And then when it calculates the price, that's when we're actually ready to do the final step. And we will create an order item. And when we do it, we will link it to its parent order. We will link it to the parent product. We'll have the price. We'll have the billing price, the one in the customer's currency. And for the quantity, we'll be using just one because, yeah, quantity we don't have a source to pull it from. All right, and then the result looks like this. So we had leather jacket and slim jeans. It created 2 order items. We can check them here. And here it's important to validate that the price was actually correct. So if we go to the price list, the $1,000 leather jacket was the price of 22nd, which is today. So the price is correct. And if we go to exchange rate and find the rate for today is 0.8. So the price for this item should be 800 pounds, which is also correct. All right. So that's the kind of the workflow from A to Z. And we can go into details of each of those items, but just let me, these guys help me if you have any questions. It is something that we need to focus on a little more in details.
That was awesome, Artem. Thank you for that. There are a few questions specific to yours that maybe we can hit real quick. Alma Durate is asking, are the currencies updated manually on a daily basis, or is it being pulled from a currency exchange page like Google? If so, can we still edit it manually if we notice an error in the conversion?
Yeah, it depends. In this case, I already had a lot, so I kept it simpler, and I filled it in manually. But of course, if we were building this in production, I think the better approach would be to set up an automation that would execute at a schedule, let's say daily or monthly or whatever the pace is. And then we could have used either a webhook, and we could have talked to a service that would provide us the exchange rate, or maybe simpler way would be to set up another AI action where you would just tell it, so it goes like this. At a scheduled time, let's say every week, and then AI action this. And the only tricky thing here is that you would need to pick the right model to do the search, to do the web search, which probably will be this one. That it works the best from the experience. And then you just tell it, like, go to the whatever European Central Bank site and pull up the latest exchange rates for today, and just bring it back into the system. Yeah.
Nice. Thank you for that. Last one specific to you, and then Rawson will turn it over to you. And then again, at the end, there's a handful of questions that we still want to get answered. But the last one for you, Artem, is from Elena. Artem, could you have just used a simple function rather than AI action ?
Yes. Well, yes and no. Because of course, when I create an order item, I could have used a formula, right? That would, pull a value from the price list. The danger here is that formulas tend to recalculate and they can change your historical data in the past. You cannot protect your data, right? So if you notice, these fields are not calculated. So once the automation sets them, and maybe additionally I can set edit permissions and I can say who can edit this field, nobody. Yeah. And that's how I can protect it from other users. So that, yeah, this is the price that was effective on this date. This is the rate that was effective, and it's carved in stone. Because yeah, with formulas you could have probably achieved something, but there would be a little more work. Like you will have to take the value that formula calculated and again store it in a separate field just to make sure that it's not recalculated in the past. But yeah, as always in SmartSuite, there are several ways of achieving the same result, and yeah.
Love it. Thank you, sir. Roshan, let's turn things over to you. We've got 18 minutes. Take the time you need. And again, sounds like Peter, Artem, and maybe even Roshan can stay a little long for those who still want to get answers to those questions. And for some reason you need to drop, we will track you down and get you those answers. But Artem, thank you so much. Roshan, we'll turn it over to you.
All right, sweet. So I'm going to share a Miro board really quick and just talk about the planning of these kinds of automations, especially when you have really big ones. And then I'll hand it over to Baden to kind of walk through how he took the initial plan that we discussed and then went and executed on it and turned it into fine details before he went and did all of it. Because sometimes these automations can get big and it's important to plan well. Otherwise, it can be very tiring as you start to build it out. So we always start with our plans with a list of the tables that we're trying to influence. So what tables are involved on the plan? In this case, this was for a budgeting system. So the goal was to effectively allow them to forecast a budget. And in order to forecast, you have to have records that exist in the future. So you have to have 2026, 2027, and months for those years. And so we constructed a data model where the data model would be able to store that information into the future. And then we looked at what tables are going to be completely handled by the automations. So our years, our months, contracts, fiscal years and project years, contract months, all of this is going to be handled by our automations. And then these blue tables are where people actually interact with the data. And then everything else will be automatic, handled by the automations. So after Baden and I talked through this based on what the client's needs were and their solutions, Baden took this to the next step, and then he proceeded to actually plan out how the automation would function and then build all of them in SmartSuite. So I'll hand this back over to Baden now. Baden, anything I should add before I switch back to you?
No, that sounds good, but feel free to add as we go along with this, whenever.
Yeah. Yeah, this is pretty important to keep your sanity, knowing, where the automation is going to be triggered from by the people making changes in certain tables, and then what tables are you looking to impact or influence with the automations, especially when they get big like this. So I'll hand it off to Baden now.
Okay, so let me make sure I'm sharing the right screen. There we go. Okay, so this is just on that mirror that Rossin was sharing. And so this was kind of our plan when once we had this Miro and everything, we decided to sit down. We needed to think through when planning an automation, the main thing is how am I going to trigger this? And where is it going to get triggered? Kind of like what Rossin said. And so we made this kind of automation map to be able to go through and say, we have our project contract years. When are we going to trigger that? We have our fiscal contract years. How are we going to trigger that? And it came down for both of those, we needed to trigger it up on the pipeline level, which is really just the information for the different contracts that the client has. So when a contract, they'll go in and they'll set different specifications, contract start date, end date, the status of the contract. And when that's generated, when those are, when the contract is ready to create the budget, so when it's been awarded or executed, whatever we want to say, it's going to go and it's first, we realize we needed to create the project contract years first. So it's going to go and it's going to create that. Once these are ready, it's going to then go create the fiscal contract years. Once those are ready, then we go and generate our contract months. And our contract months are where we're able to store and start summarizing data for how much we've spent on each of the different months. Then they realized they wanted to break it down even more based on categories. So they have different categories that they need to budget out for staffing, for consulting, travel, media expenses, all those different things. And so we set up, it's really important to take that time to say, how am I going to trigger this? How am I going to create start the generation of all these different things? And so here's kind of the map. I have the app, the solution right here that we can kind of see it happen in real time. And later we can go through some of the automations to see how it works. But a lot of this is using the new update that SmartSuite pushed where a formula field changing counts as a update or it will trigger the when a record meets a condition um, that when we saw that, we were super excited. It's an extremely powerful update. And we really, really like it. And so here's oh, I always scroll back too far. Here is the contract that we're going to use for the test. And so we have this starting. I'm going to change this just for right now. We're going to have this start in, yeah, December. I might not change that. And so right now, this is not quite ready for budgeting just because it hasn't been executed. But all of these are just kind of formulas that we created to be able to give the information to the automation so we can have kind of like a dynamic, we can call these fields and it's a dynamic and changes for each of the different contracts. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn this and say it's ready for budgeting. And just remember, and we're going to watch it. I have all these tabs open and we're going to watch it go create the project years, then the fiscal years, category years, contract months. And they're all just triggering off of when a record meets a condition. So we have summary fields or formula fields that's saying we have all the years created, let's keep going. So I'm going to move this, the year started, we're going to say this is executed. And so this now meets all the conditions and this needs project year. The automations are looking to say, oh, the record meets the condition. This is equal to 1. So let's go start generating those. And so we can go look and we'll see if I tested this right before. So now I'm getting nervous. There we go. Okay. So the project years all generated. And so then this will refresh and say that those are now 0. And so then that makes it so the automation won't trigger again. Fiscal years are all there. And so now if we go category years, those will wait. So contract months are now generating. And once these are all done, it's going to go tell the fiscal year, hey, all of our months exist. So now we can go generate the category years. So that's still running. We have 2025. The way we built it and the way we planned it, we are building months outside of the contract year, but we have this formula telling us. And that just makes it, that was part of our planning of just saying it's going to be easier to generate these when it's once they're all at the beginning. And so now we can see that the automations, now that this is ready and the category year exists, the record met the condition to go and look for the project year that we already created. And so now it's connecting all of these to the correct project year. And so what that's doing is it allows their accounting to see the financial reporting both for the fiscal year for like January to December, but then also they track things based on the project year. So the project year, it starts in December and it ends at the end of November. And so then they can go into their category months once those generate, and they're still working on it. Our category years are generating. They can go in there and apply all of the different data, say we're going to spend this much on staffing, this much on consulting, and then this will make it so it can summarize both up into the project year and the fiscal year. So while those are still generating, that was fast. Okay. So they're still coming through, some of them, and they're still getting connected to their project year, but they can go in and fix that. And so then one of the use cases for this particular client is the contract sometimes would change dates. So instead of starting in December, they wouldn't change it to start in September. And so using the automation, and when they do that, then it messes up this relationship or this connection right here, because technically, November, October, and September, these ones in 2026 should be applied to the last one. So then using the same automations, we went in and we made it so if they change the start date of the contract, I'm going to change this back to September.
Yeah, they use this for quoting as well, and so this really kicked our butts because they're like, oh well, after we win the contract, we still have to go update the dates with the official dates, because that was just us guessing everything, and then they agreed to it, and we make an official one and update all the dates. We're like, oh, okay, great. So we need to accommodate for a change in the start and end dates as well. So so bait and continue from there.
Yeah. So as that, we now have automations that a record matches a condition. I just ran a lot of automations, so it might take a little bit. But what it's going to do, let's make sure that that's saved. That's saved. So yeah, it's just going to take a little bit because there's automations running. But that project year is going to change the dates, and we can see that it changed here. And so now we had to add a new project year. And so just based off those formulas on the contract record that we had before, it then realized, oh, we need another year. So it went and created another year. And then it changed the dates of all of these different the previous project years. So that way those all line up. And then the contract months, there it goes. It went and changed the different months that they're connected to. So that way all of their categories and all of their category months and all their reporting is now connected to the correct project year. The same thing happens for the fiscal years. Things get updated if that needs to happen. But you can also, and then this is where it gets real cool with the new update, is, I just made it longer, but let's say we want to make it shorter, and we're going to go clear back into a new year. So we actually don't need 2025 anymore. So we'll change that. Nope. Did I do it? Yeah, I did do it. Okay. And so now the automations are all starting to fire, and they're realizing, oh, I no longer need, the year 2025. I no longer need all of those category months. I no longer need any of those. And those are all just based off of formulas going. And if we go and we look, so the automation is run to know that we don't need this, and eventually this is going to get deleted. We're really stressing these automations, but we can see they're still keeping up pretty well. And so then it's going to go and say, oh, there it goes. And so that got deleted. Our fiscal years, 2025 is no longer there. And if we go start looking at our contract months, we can see that these are starting to get erased as well, as they realize that they no longer need it. And so then that helps them, as Rawson was saying, use this as both a quoting software and as an actual budget tracking to be able to keep things in place. And so all of that's just based off of when a record matches a condition. And it's really powerful, and you can just set it up so it automates everything. Instead of having to go and create each one of these different types of records, we can go in and just make it do it for us, which is super cool. But that's the extent of that. If there's any questions that we need to answer with it.
Yeah, we hope this illustrates the power of what automations are capable of, and how quick they can actually work too when you set them up right.
Yeah, so
Love
there we
it.
go. No longer any 2025 months. So
Love it. Love it.
that's
Thank you. Yeah, that was, and that's live with one of your customers currently, correct?
mm-hmm. Yep, they're
Nice.
using.
Awesome. Love it. Well, thank you for that. We've got 5 minutes. Let's go through some Q&A if we can. I know our 4 panelists have been trying to answer as many as they can, but we'll go through the ones that are still open, no particular order.
Jeff,
Ted Stringer saying, oh,
maybe
yeah.
I take one right off the top because I saw a question about the inability to send an email from a scheduled time automation, and I just wanted to point something out real quickly if I can.
Absolutely.
Let me share once again. The thing about that I wanted to point out with scheduled time automations, most automations have what we call record context. So they're initiated by a change or an update or something that tells it, hey, this is a record that's involved in this automation. When you do scheduled time, it doesn't have that. So before you can do something like send an email, you need to give it record context if you want to pull in, say, an email address from a SmartSuite record. And you can do that with a find. And just as a very quick, basic, probably doesn't make sense example, but to show you the concept, I have this staffing table that has a list of people and their email addresses. So if I wanted to say every week, I want to go get everyone in that staffing table and send them an update email, I can go find them all, use a loop that's pointed at the results of that find, and then I can use an email, send an email action. And again, that current item has all of the information from the contact records or the staffing records that I just pulled. One of those values is email, and I can use either a assigned to person in SmartSuite or just an email address in the send to input. So that's how you can make that whole scenario work. And obviously, in a real world thing, you'd have other criteria. You would want to check, maybe certain conditions and so forth. But this allows you to get that record context, pull those emails, and then use them.
Awesome. Thank you for that, Peter. We'll go through a few here. Well, I guess before we do that, this is recorded. Everyone will get a copy. I already can tell we need to do a round 2 for automations. The Q&A has been great. The presentations have been great. So keep your eyes out for round 2 on automations coming to a webinar near you soon. Ted Stringer is saying, how do you create the folders within the automations that Peter was showing?
The folders.
How do you create the folders within the automations that Peter was showing? I think that was.
So let me go back to my automations list and are we talking about these individual groupings? This is just a grouping within a grid. The other components like the task templates, this is just a table with data that we're searching. So if there's a little bit more context that you can give us,
Yeah,
on
we
the
can follow
folder,
up with Ted.
we can
Yeah.
dig into that more.
Okay. One follow up with Ted is Ted said, I would like to organize my automations. I do not see that option.
Just a quick note there. We're going to give you some additional flexibility here in the future where you can reorder these and so forth. Right now, they're all grouped by table. So some people don't realize these are collapsible. So if you have a whole bunch of them, you can collapse them and then just show the automations that are relevant. The product team's working on some other things to just give you a better interface where you can drill into these, in kind of one consolidated location and organize them and, just have some better ways to view when when you have more complex scenarios like we were just showing, you can have dozens of these, and we understand the pain. We do it ourselves, and we'll find ways to make that more efficient.
Jeffrey Busanoff asking, does the looping action count towards automations for each iteration versus the loop action?
The actions that get run are counted individually. So if you ran 5 records through a 3-step loop, you'd end up with 15 automation usages.
Okay, great. Let's see. Is there Virginia Yang, is there a report or dashboard that shows which automations in the workspace are currently running or not running, so I can turn them off if needed?
Frequently requested, not yet. You can see what's running when you drill into them and look at the history. Obviously, that's not great at a holistic level. So we have on the back end in admin, we have a usages dashboard, and we're planning on first enhancing that just so that you can see which of your automations are being used and how frequently. And then, extensions to that would be some updates in the automations list itself to show you what's currently in state, stop them, rerun them, and so forth. So lots of plans there. It'll probably take us a little bit of time to get to the point where you can see here are the ones that are actively running and stop them mid process. But all of that's kind of continuum, and we'll keep building toward it.
Awesome. We'll do one more. And for anyone, if you didn't get your question answered, if we missed one, please email me at jeff@smartsuite.com. Want to make sure we get those answered. But the last one for the day before we sign off is around timestamping. So just kind of timestamping notes possible ? And permissions for users. I changed someone from administrator to lower level, and that couldn't click or on a linked field ? But I think just in general, like time stamping notes is an option. Is that available?
One of the options that you have in an automation is to use the current time or the current date stamp to fill in something like a date field. So that's definitely possible. All the automation runs themselves are time stamped in terms of when they initiate. So you can see that detail as well. But we'd love to hear more about the use case and if there's a gap that needs to be addressed down the road.
Wonderful. Well, thank you everyone for showing up today, for the participating. I think it was one of the most engaged webinars we've had. So like I said, I think it definitely warrants a round 2 around automations. Special thanks to Peter, Artem, Rawson, Baden. Thank you so much for sharing your knowledge. And yeah, have a wonderful day. We'll see you soon. And thanks to everybody. You take care.
Thanks all.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you, everyone. See ya.